All right, Bears fans, welcome back. Bear down, and today is going to be another controversial day. And no, I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm not trying to stir the pot or make things so that I have everyone coming after me. It's not what my purpose and my goal is. When I evaluated Justin Fields, I truly saw things where he was progressing and improving every year. Now, that doesn't mean he's not doing that. It just means Ryan Poles chose to go a different direction. Doesn't mean my analysis of him was off. Yes, he had a lot to fix, and he probably will get a chance to do that in Pittsburgh. We'll see how that shakes out with him and Russell Wilson. But he's no longer the quarterback in Chicago. That's gone. It's over with. It's done. I've said that. I've openly said that. It's time to move on. Not hanging our hat on that. We're moving forward. But now one of the first things I did was I proposed, is Caleb Williams generational? Is he worth taking over, trading down, and getting more picks by taking Jaden Daniels? And I think it really is the two of them. Other people will debate and argue, if we don't take Caleb, we're going to take Drake May. Well, I see the perks to Drake May too. I see so much more in Jaden Daniels, and I'm not afraid of his slender frame that he can fill into and they can bulk him up. And if we've got to freaking stick him in the weight room and put him on a steak diet dinner and give him 30 pounds, whatever we have to do, it can be done. I'm not saying it can't be done. You see pro UFC fighters, boxers, people bulk and cut weight and put weight on. It's possible. And it won't be a detriment to his throwing. It's not the purpose of this video. But is Caleb Williams more generational? Is he truly a generational talent? I don't know the answer to that. That's going to be the first thing I've said. And I've openly said, I don't backtrack anything I say. I've openly said Caleb Williams, to me, is not special. Now, I agree that all these scouts and everyone who know more than me have said he is special. But I've also proposed that they've said these things because we're in a lull of quarterback eliteness. And he went and won the Heisman and came back for another year. And every time someone does that, there's going to be extra hype and they're going to be special. If Jaden Daniels had another year and went back to college after he won the Heisman this year, he would absolutely be touted and flaunted out there and be the consensus number one and be special. And they might even call him generational. They might even say, this guy is once in a generation. Look what he's doing. Now, I truly believe the 2020 and 2021 classes were better than anything we've seen since then. Now, I understand the scrutiny under the 21 class. Trevor Lawrence is the only starter left now. And you've got Trey Lance that was a bust. You've got Zach Wilson that was a bust. And now Justin Fields is a backup who couldn't even make it as a starter in the league. That's the picture that's painted. Okay? So I understand the way it looks. 2022 is pretty consensusly not a good draft year for quarterbacks. I think everyone agrees with that. 2023, the jury's still out, but Bryce Young was the consensus number one, correct? C.J. Stroud had a worse poor pass percentage and adjusted completion percentage than Justin Fields, but he also had a upper half of the league line and 8 weapons that he threw to that were above average in Houston. So he had a supporting staff around him. He had a cast that was perfect for him to come into. Well, look at the year before. That's why they had the second overall pick. I get it, guys, but they were building the right way. And look at what they did with the draft last year and the free agents and what they ended up having. And second-year players that came out. Nico Collins was freaking amazing. That wasn't just on C.J. Stroud. They had been building that properly. All right, so nonetheless, I think C.J. Stroud is going to be a great quarterback in the league. I have no doubt about that. I really do think he's going to be a good quarterback. I also think Justin Fields can be a great quarterback. Jury's still out on Will Levis. No, I don't think Will Levis is a lost cause. I absolutely think he has a lot of potential. Anthony Richardson got injured, and I see a ton of the same stuff from Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson in Anthony Richardson. He's got to learn to protect himself, obviously. So here we are in 2024, and I've openly said this, and I've made a video on it. 2025, I don't think there's anything too special, but I really do compare it similar to this year's class, which might be like the 2021 class. Or am I wrong? And this year's class is more like the 2020 class. And if that's the case, are we debating over Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert? Are we arguing over those when that's who Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May are? I don't know. These quarterbacks are going at the top of the draft at a high level. Teams need great quarterbacks because there haven't been the generational ones coming out. Well, we know for sure that ever since he won the Heisman and he went back for another year, he's been touted as generational. There's no lack of place where you can see generational. Even before the season started, the NFL season, Sean Payton believed that Caleb Williams is such a generational talent that teams will purposefully tank for him. Now, the Bears didn't have to do that. They were able to have Carolina's pick. And I'm going to say it again. I really do believe it's 90% we're taking Caleb Williams. But if you think Ryan Poles and Ian Cunningham and staff aren't going to go to the pro day today, aren't going to go to LSU's pro day on the 27th, aren't going to bring them into Hallis Hall and drill them and press them. Do you remember last year, Darnell Wright, how he came into Hallis Hall and they said they worked him out harder than he's ever been worked out in his life? And there was a lot of fans got won over by him because of the way he talked about that. He was ready to go. Give me more, give me more, give me more. Is Caleb Williams going to be the same way? Is he going to show grit and determination and a positive, feed me with this competitiveness? Is he going to get up on the chalkboard or the whiteboard or with the markers? Is he going to be able to explain everything about the intricate details of plays that these coaches want to see his understanding of the game? Is he going to be able to understand and recognize what he did wrong? Playing hero ball. Dorian Singer and Taj Washington were highly rated receivers before last year. Very highly rated. Most places had them as a day 2 pick, second and third rounders. And Brennan Rice was coming off of a year where they said, well, he has a lot of potential. He's a day 3 pick, fourth and fifth round, but he could definitely rise. Well, he did. What's the big difference? Well, Brendan Rice is an ex-receiver. And Caleb Williams liked to play hero ball. He wanted to be the star of the show. So he looked for that ex-receiver, and he'd make plays that were unnecessary sometimes. Instead of going to Taj Washington and Dorian Singer and making the easier play, getting the easier yards, he went for the big hero play balls. Now, he has an arm that is special. He only threw 4 picks all year. So he got away with a lot of stuff. And he escaped a lot of stuff. And then people blame it on his line and they blame it on his weapons. And, well, look at what Jaden Daniels he had. He has Malik Neighbors and he has Brian Thomas. Well, do you ever think that maybe Jaden Daniels made Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors better? Do you think maybe that was in cohesion? You hear the same argument for Justin Fields. Well, look what he had. He had Chris Olave and 4 first-rounders. Look what he had. Well, do you think maybe a different quarterback would have made those guys worse? Now, I'm not saying Caleb Williams is a bad quarterback. Clearly, he's not. He's at the top of this draft for a reason. But could he have done more? That's the questions that go through my head, and that's why I have these thoughts that I do, and they're not accepted, guys. I'll tell you that right now. These thoughts are not accepted. People don't want to hear it. That's my generational quarterback. Don't say those naughty, dirty words about him. Don't say those things. Well, the narrative's changing now. We've given away a quarterback that was loved, that was beloved, that was a staple in this city. It's done. Justin Fields is gone. And I proposed it before. This is what I proposed. Is Caleb Williams worth getting rid of Justin Fields? Or is all this stuff you can get from trading down from 1-1 to 1-2 and then to 1-6 worth keeping Justin Fields? There's the question mark. And this is actually a very moderate haul. It's only 1 future first and 1 future second with picks this year. Getting 1-6, keeping our own 1-9, getting 240, 247, 370, 378, 3100. That's really not a crazy haul for trading down and letting people come up to get generational talent. So doing that twice, we would have a star receiver, an ex-receiver that is truly one of the best players in this draft, in my opinion, in Rome Odunze. We'd have a defensive tackle, a future defensive edge, a future safety, a tight end, and 3 staple linemen, Zach Frazier, Zach Zinter, Kieran Agmadaji. I don't say his name right, I get that. Who they've already scheduled for a top 30 visit. So clearly Ryan Poles already sees him as a potential maybe at 75. And that's on top of our other picks. This is what we'd get from trading down from 1-1. So I proposed this, and it's circulated. And obviously this is gone. This is no longer in the books. Not an option anymore. We cannot have this beautiful haul for passing up on Caleb Williams. Well, or someone else. So that means Ryan Poles truly believes there's someone in this draft class that he can reset the clock with, that he can have his coaches work with, and they will pull out something truly special. So on Twitter right now and all around, everyone that was polling for Caleb Williams said he's generational. He can take us to the playoffs right off the bat. He can have 4,000 yards passing his first year. He can have 40 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. He can be the exception. He can be it. And now that Justin Fields has been traded away, their tune is all changing. It's changed to, well, he's a rookie, so we need to be patient with him. Let's temper our expectations. We shouldn't have those crazy expectations on anyone, not even a rookie. We just gave up this, so don't tell me that bullcrap. Don't tell me to temper my expectations. If you're telling me this man is worth 9-8 players that could totally transform this franchise for the next 5 to 10 years, if you're telling me that, my expectations are going to be sky high. They are going to be through the roof, and he better come through. I expect that 4,000-yard season. I expect 40 touchdowns, and I expect no more than 10 interceptions. I expect at least one playoff win. And if we're not winning the division, we better darn well be competing up into the very last week for it and getting that playoff berth. And he better take us to a playoff win in his first year. Dang right, my expectations are sky high. We traded away my favorite player. It's gone. It's over with. It's done. But you also traded away this potential for these other 9 players that could transform this team. He better be worth it. 100%, that's what I'm saying right now. I'm not trying to be controversial. I'm saying, Ryan Poles, you had better be right on this one. This is the biggest decision of your career. And yes, I've watched him on tape. And I've watched Jaden Daniels on tape. And I get it. I get why Jaden Daniels isn't the number one. This was his first huge year, but it was a huge enough year that he won the Heisman. Now, Caleb Williams won the Heisman, but he didn't win it this last year. So who was the number one quarterback in the league last year? In college football, Jaden Daniels was better than Caleb Williams this last year. All right, so let's run through it real quick. Here's draft buzz on Caleb Williams. 6'1", undersized. Other quarterbacks that have been undersized have made it work too. That's happened. He's quick. He can throw off platform. When he makes a decision, he can get out of his fingers quickly. He also tries to play hero ball. He holds it loose from his body. He fumbles a lot. All things that are correctable. So these are the things that are up to our GM and our scouts and our assistant GM and our coaches and everyone to look and say, is this Pat Mahomes-esque? Is he special? Is he more special than Adam Mason is saying he is? Well, here's his season. There's all his games. His touchdowns, interceptions, 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Good season. Sorry, I said earlier 4. He threw 5. Not a big deal, honestly. One horrible game against Notre Dame that everyone picks apart. Guys, I give someone one bad game. You betcha. He had one bad game against Notre Dame. You betcha. You can have a bad game. The rest of them, pretty freaking solid games. Adjusted completion percentage 77.5, which you know is a metric to me that's more important than his completion percentage. NFL passer rating of 117.4. Take out the Notre Dame game, and he had a pretty freaking solid season. Pretty solid season. 100%. Go to Jaden Daniels. 6'4", little undersized on the weight. Just what I'm talking about. Get that kid, feeding him steaks, getting him in the weight room, pounding that. He's got a cannon for an arm, but not as fast a velocity of an arm, which might not translate to the NFL as well. You got to zip it in there. 100% agree. That's what I loved about Justin Fields, too, though. He could zip it. People argue and debate on that, but when you watch him, he zips it. He can rush and scramble. Is that going to translate with his frail body? I don't know. But he's an excellent passer, and he doesn't play hero ball. He gets it where it needs to be. And yeah, he had Brian Thomas, which is why I'm so high on him. And you guys saw me create a video on Brian Thomas because he runs exceptional routes. He's lightning quick, and he's an ex-receiver who gets contested catches. 100%. Can you imagine drafting Jaden Daniels and Brian Thomas, though? And then adding to that Keenan Allen and DJ Moore and Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett? I that's why I'm going through these things, guys. I'm not sold on Caleb Williams. I'm also not sold on Caleb Williams. Either way, we're in a prime scenario. So I've let Justin Fields go. He's gone. He's out the window. Moving on. I hope he has success. I hope we meet Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl and we beat them. And I hope it happens 4 times and Justin Fields ends up being Dan Marino and he never wins the Super Bowl because the Bears keep beating him out. And that's just the way it goes. That's no ill will on Justin Fields. Hopes he has success. But I want Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams to be the next John Elway or the next Pat Mahomes. That's what I want. So here's Jaden Daniels' season. Pretty freaking remarkable season. You look at all those stats, and then you have the people. I mean, there's so many people that want to cut down and naysay and make excuses for different things. I just said with Caleb Williams, I'll give him one bad game. Here's the thing. Jaden didn't have a bad game. And the thing that people are knocking him on is, well, his big game came against Grambling and Georgia State. Okay, well, did you expect him to play poorly against lower opponents? Or rock out like he did? And his adjusted completion percentage was even higher than Caleb Williams. And guess what? He played more elite competition. He played SEC defenses, and he tore them apart. He shredded them. So you want to know my expectation? Here's other former first-round picks, except Pat Mahomes. We all know he wasn't a first-round pick, but that's who he's being compared to. So you want to see my expectation? I 100%, if we take this kid and we passed up everything else, expect him to be Eli Manning, John Elway, Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning. I expect that. If we just passed up on a quarterback that was good and ascending and gave up those other 9 to 10 players, he better be. Otherwise, if it's even close, and we know Washington wants to come up to number 1, this to me is still worth it to trade out if he's not generational. And that's why I'm not a blind lemming who's just walking to the trough and saying, okay, slurp me up some Caleb Williams water. Let me drink it in. I've said repeatedly since we traded Justin Fields, this 90% means we're taking Caleb Williams. The only difference is we have to go through the pro days. We have to go through Hallis Hall, the top 30 visit. We have to go through the interviews. We have to go through the process to see if they feel the same way. Now, I think Washington already feels that way, and they're completely all in on him. But they're going to do their analysis and evaluations too. And if they're willing to come up and offer, this is a very moderate haul, guys. This is not an extreme haul. Some people say, well, that's way too much. Well, no. To convince the Bears to come off, this is actually pretty moderate. Most people would say we need to get a future first. I don't think we would. I think if you're taking 4 players in this draft when Washington has 9, 10 picks, then you're going to get a second, not a first. Take less players and you'd get a first. Take a first and a second, maybe a late rounder, and you can possibly get a first. But I think Ryan Poles would want this. First, second, third, and the conditional, the compensation pick that they got, as well as the future second. And you're telling me Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels, if they're equal, if they're neck and neck, and you can get Zach Frazier and Zach Zinter and Kieran Agmagdaji and a future second, and I just picked who is right in the middle of the second round right now, and that's Shiloh Sanders. So it doesn't matter the position. I was just saying a future second. And so I picked him, and I put him in there. So if he's not truly generational, if he's not, and you know what the really crappy thing is? We're not going to know. You're not going to know before the draft. We're going to have to go off their judgment. Now, I do trust Ryan Poles. A lot of people are jaded and bitter, and it's frustration and upset right now. I do trust Ryan Poles. The concept of him getting a quarterback to reset the clock and have 4 years with a brand new coaching staff to come in doesn't make sense why we kept Matt Eberflus, why we kept Rick Grimes if that's the case. But he fits the culture, and I think that's the biggest thing. He wants to keep the culture going, but then he surrounded him with men that are very highly respected to come in. The number 1 recruited offensive coordinator in Shane Waldron, high caliber quarterback coaches, wide receiver coaches, defensive lineman coaches, defensive coordinator, all highly touted. So if you're telling me that these men say Caleb Williams is him, then I'm going to accept giving up this and this because he was such. And I'm going to be all in. I'm going to back that kid. But he better throw for 4,000 yards in his first year, especially with a line that now has an established center. Everyone's healthy, and we need a little more depth. But we have a true wide receiver 1, tight end 1, and tight end 2 that are among the best in the NFL. And if you can't throw for 4,000 yards with that, if you can't throw for 40 touchdowns with that, then you weren't everything they hyped you up to be. And I'm pissed off. So should expectations on Caleb Williams be tempered? You guys on Twitter want him to be tempered now because, well, we got our way. Justin Fields is gone. We got the quarterback now. So let's just be patient with him. Bullcrap. Bullcrap to that. We just gave up the entire future of this franchise if he doesn't work out. Now, on your same argument, if he works out, if he's Peyton Manning, if he's John Elway, if he's Patrick Mahomes, then we just hit the freaking jackpot because Carolina sucked this year. And we just got the quarterback that's going to be cemented in the Hall of Fame, is going to have a statue in front of the new Soldier Field, that's going to be the new god of Chicago. He 100% could be that special, and I sure hope he is. So is he truly generational? I don't know. I'll leave that thought with you, and bear down.